morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to take a look at the pre-release promos for Journey Together. It took a while. They really made us wait for them, but they have, and I mean this with sincerity, one of the absolute best pre-release promos that we've had. And yes, I know earlier this week I told you that Psyduck might be my favourite looking card ever. I meant it sincerely. It's an Okacheke artwork. And yes, I know I'm now telling you we got one of my favourite pre-release promos ever, and it's only a couple days later. Is it hyperbole? No! It's all by Okacheke, and I adore Okacheke. So yay! So what do we got here then? Well, we got all four of them. We'll rank them like we always do. And in at number 4, I think we've got to go for Lillie's Ribombee. I'm sure, by the way, most of you have figured this out yet, but let me just say it anyway. Obviously, what we've got here is one from each trainer. You guys all figured that out, right? We've got one of these from each trainer. That's the way it goes. Why does Lillie's Ribombee come in last? Well, it's just the least playable of them. And look, Lillie's Ribombee is very, very cool. Artwork-wise, I don't want to sound mean here. I don't think either of them are that special. They're fine. They're lovely little artworks, but neither of these artworks really stands out to me as being particularly good. Although I should mention, we do actually have an illustration rare of Lillie's Ribombee, which is going to be in the set proper, which firstly, absolutely gorgeous card, and secondly, this is clearly the optimal version of it. So you got 3 to choose from, but I do think it's a pretty easy choice here. It's Lillie's Ribombee as an illustration rare. As for the card, what we've got here is an ability whereby you can look at your opponent's hand and bench all their basic Pokemon when you evolve up into it, which is cool, and there's obviously a pretty obvious combo here with Clefairy, whereby that does damage based on yours and your opponent's bench Pokemon, therefore using Ribombee to bench all of your opponent's basics from their hand, clearly in keeping with the whole Lillie's Clefairy. Sounds good in theory, but the thing is, these cards have been out in Japan for weeks now, and frankly, we know that Lillie's Ribombee's not good enough. We know that Lillie's Clefairy is actually seeing a bunch of play, but it's not actually proving to be particularly good. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's just not really a thing. And I do think this is actually pretty clearly number 4 here. Sorry, Lillie's Ribombee. Coming in at number 3, this one's a lot closer, but I think we've got to go with N's Darmanitan. And yes, like I say, one from each of the 4 trainers. Artwork-wise here, and I'm having to show you a couple of Japanese scans where we've not had the English cards be revealed. Artwork-wise here, I'm not a huge fan of Darmanitan generally. I think I probably prefer the original. Oh no, actually no, this one looks so happy. Look how happy he looks. I mean, to be fair, they're both alright. I'm just not a huge Darmanitan fan. I know some people are. Hit me up in the comments if you are. Tell me which of the 2 you prefer. But here, ends Darmanitan. What we've got is a really rather useful attack, whereby for 2 energy, it does 30 damage for each basic energy in your opponent's discard pile. Or 3 energy, discard all energy from this Pokemon, does 90 to the active and 90 to one of your opponent's bench. It's actually a couple of really good attacks. The first attack there basically guarantees Ceruledge is never going to be that good. Because essentially this is just a ridiculous counter to Ceruledge decks. Ceruledge, remember, does damage depending on how many energy you've got in a discard pile. Well, this does damage to your opponent depending on how much energy they've got in the discard pile. That's a bad combo. So if Ceruledge ever becomes good, yeah, Ends Darmanitan will check it beautifully. But it's also, 90 to the active, 90 to one of your opponent's bench. And of course, the energy cost is not as bad as it looks here, because we've got N Zoroark, which can copy the attack of any of your Ends Pokemon on the bench for 2 energy. And we've got Ends PP up here, which lets you attach an extra energy, and actually you combine the 2 of them together, and we go, oh, yeah, okay. That's a pretty nice combo. So in Ends decks, and Ends decks aren't the best decks around, and I'm not going to pretend that they are, but in Ends decks, this is a really handy one-of. It's not much more than that, honestly, but it is a really nice one-of. So if you're playing Ends decks, you're going to need one of these. It comes in at number 3. Not the best deck in the format, but a very nice deck that is seeing a little bit of play, and then this is a pretty integral part thereof. And actually, I need to correct myself here. It's not played as a one-of in most decks over in Japan. It's generally played as a 2-2 or a 3-2 line. It is actually pretty much the main attacker you're copying in Ends decks, because both of those attacks are good. So actually, scratch what I previously said. It is an integral part. That bit was true. Calling it a one-of actually is doing a massive disservice, for which I can only apologise. The thing is, the Ends deck isn't actually proving to be that great. It's fine, and it's doing all right in Japan, but it's far from a top deck. In at number 2, we've got Iono's Kilowattrel, which is an absurdly nice card. Here's the thing, though. Remember, we are getting an illustration rare of this one. So now we need to look at this and go, well, hang on a second. Now we got 3 versions of the card. Which one is actually going to be the best version of them? And, I mean, it's the illustration rare. I think we can probably all agree on that one, right? I like this pre-release promo version of it, don't get me wrong, but we have an illustration rare. And the illustration rare is absolutely flat out ridiculously phenomenal. So just like we said a minute ago with Lillie's Ribombee, yeah, the illustration rare is going to be the best version of it. The good news is that the other 2 don't have illustration rares, but they have gone for 2 Pokemon here that have illustration rares in the set, and both the illustration rares are like ridiculous, over-the-top, top-tier illustration rares. So there's not going to be much of a competition here when we're sitting down and trying to figure out, like, well, hang on a second, which is the best of them. No, it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious at this stage. But all of that aside, what do we think about this card? It's actually a really good card. And it's one of those cards where there's an argument that right now it's not actually seeing as much play as Darmanitan, but it's so good. Because it's got an ability whereby you can discard an energy attached to it and then draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand. Now, there are going to be some decks that can actually take advantage of this anyway, but it is worth noting that we do have Bellibolt, which lets you attach as much energy during your turn as you like, so you can just attach the energy to this using Bellibolt, and you're not using your attachment for the turn, but you are drawing a whole bunch of cards. And yes, we do have the special illustration rare of Bellibolt that's been officially revealed in English and not the regular version, so that's the one I've got to show you. But the point is, this is just a great draw engine. You could even use it with something like Electric Generator. If you so wish, that would absolutely work. Or any deck where you could just afford to get the energy on. And yeah, you add that all up together, it's just such good energy acceleration. And obviously, Bellibolt decks are playing a pretty fat line of this. Generally 2-2 or 3-3. I'm seeing a lot of 3-3s, honestly. I think 3-3 is probably a bit more common. You see 2-2s, but honestly, 3-3 is out there. I've even seen some players playing a full 4-4 line. It is that good. So I do think you could switch 2 and 3 around. I feel pretty confident with the order, but you could switch them around. The only thing I know for certain, Ribombee should be last. So what's the best one here? Snorlax. And I told you that this was one of my favourite pre-release promos we've had in years. And it is. It is actually one of my favourite pre-release promos ever. Because here's the thing, right? Okacheke, as I've explained, as I told you the other day with Psyduck, my favourite artist working in the Pokemon TCG, bar none. absolutely hands down favourite artist, adore their work. And Snorlax, he was my original second favourite Pokemon in Gen 1. Still in my top 6, still in my Pokemon team is Snorlax. I adore Snorlax. I'm a 2-year-old, love Snorlax. So what we've got here is a combination of a Pokemon that I absolutely love, one of my very, 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 very favourite Pokemon, and my favourite artist popped together. This was always going to be the one. The only downside here, and I do think this is a fairly significant downside, I have to try and get this card now. And that's actually going to be super annoying because this is the best one in there. It's there, incidentally, because of the ability Extra Helpings that lets your Hops Pokemon do an extra 30 damage to your opponent's active. It's clearly ridiculous. And we have a bunch of very, very, very good Hops Pokemon. Like, for instance, Hops Zacian. Yes, again, we've seen the special illustration rare in English, but not the regular, I'm sorry. And, you know, that's 30 to the active, 30 to the bench. But, of course, this now makes you do extra to the active. Plus, we've got things like that Cramorant, which is seeing play all over the place, which... The Cramorant's a bit of a pain, right? Because it only actually works if your opponent's got exactly 3 or 4 prize cards remaining. But then it does 120 damage for a single colourless energy. Plus, we've actually got Hops Choice Band that does extra damage and reduce your attack cost. And then we've got the Stadium that does extra damage as well, so it's actually a plus 90 a lot. You see the thing here. Hops goes a bit hard. Again, it's not the best deck in the format, and I'm not pretending it is. But it is good, and this Snorlax's ability is absolutely redonk. But it's actually a deck in and of itself. I showed you the other day that we actually see Snorlax seeing a little bit of play and a little bit of love just as a deck in and of its own right, and I can assure you I'm going to be playing some of this. I'll have to take a quick break from Mammoth Swine, I'm sorry, but I am going to be playing a bunch of this. When this comes out, when Journey Together's actually here, I am very excited about this deck. And when you combine it with Ogre Checkout, this was an easy one for me. I do think that, except for Lillie's Ribombee, they're actually pretty close together. But I also think that Hops Snorlax is just the best among them. So there we go. There's your pre-release promos. I do think this is a good set of pre-release promos. I do think this is a set of pre-release promos which people are going to be pretty excited about. And I don't think they're all absolutely stunning, must-play top decks and all of that. But they are all integral parts of decks that could be pretty good, except Ribombee. And that makes me pretty happy. So there we go. That's what you need to know. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these. Tell me what your ranking would be 1 to 4. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Fawny Horvath, who's our newest patron and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout-out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.